Howdy, this is Sailor the Piper Man, Piper the Sailor Man, coming to you from the island of Puerto Rico with a slight cold. But I thought I'd get on and do a review of this premium pipe tobacco called Cellar Reserve, a century of tradition. It's called Cellar Reserve. It's the aromatic blend. Cellular, they use barrel. Of course, it's put in barrels, pressed to develop the flavor. It is a richly aromatic blend, sweet Virginia. I love Virginia. Most of us do. Nutty burley. So I guess the burley tastes like nuts. Soft black Cavendish. You know the whole process about Cavendish, right? And what's the topping? Note of rum, vanilla, caramel, and the base. A splash of Louisiana Perique is added for body, deep fruitiness, and just a hint of spice. I think the spice comes from the rum. And here you go. I tried it once, but this is my first smoking review. Oh, it smells so good. You know, sometimes maybe I should use it just aromatic. Light it up a little bit. Look at that. Huh? No. Sometimes we take the tobacco, but we don't really look at it and make sure and call them out if they're really processing it the way they said it would. You know, and I love tobacco. If it was straight up tobacco with no topping on it, I love it. I love tobacco. I grew up with tobacco, tasting tobacco leaves. My uncles used to have me do that. Well, they were in the tobacco industry, tobacco growers. I recall back in 1969, I had gone from New York to the island of Puerto Rico, and there I met for the first time my great uncle, who's Paco, his name was Paco, who was living on the southern end of Puerto Rico. And the day that I met him, he was cutting sugar cane. Now he was a tobacco grower, but he also worked in the sugar cane fields, and he had these long boots, much like trout fishermen. And I'm looking at him, why are you wearing? And I'm thinking, why is he wearing these long boots, Grandma? My grandma had taken me to see him. And he says, oh, you'll see, you'll find out. So Uncle Paco came with an extra one. He looks at me, he goes, oh, you strong, you gonna come out and help me out in the field. So when I went out into the field, I had to wear this slosh. It was kind of a little muddy, a little wet. It was very, very humid. And it was like 98 degrees out there, man. That didn't bother me because I handle hot temperatures really good. So I went out there, I was young and drank. He had a chug. And he had these machetes. He started cutting them. And I was standing back and he was cutting them, right? And about 15 minutes into it, I started cutting it. He started showing me, you know. And then all of a sudden, I see these little freaking scorpions at the bottom of the the root level of these sugar cane. I go, Uncle, what's that? He goes, no, don't touch that. That's why we wear these boots, because there are scorpions out here. I had no idea these there. For most of his life, he had to deal with scorpions. My wife is there. That's why the dogs are barking. He was working in that. I didn't know sugar cane workers. Scorpions love sugar. You know, the sap. So I'm out there sugar canes, and the sugar cane, you know, these scorpions coming out. like this. It's a little wet. For some reason, it's moisture. I'm in my K Woody special bit. Lowe's K Woody. I'm just waiting to get the bit. Yeah, it's a little, not wet, but it's moist. The first thing that hits you when the cellar is the bouquet is a smell. It's very soft, but it's a sweet smell. I taste the caramel. It smells like caramel. I don't know if you ever been around burnt caramel. And mm, mm, it's a light body smoke. It's not harsh. I don't really taste the perique. They probably perique for complexity, you know? Maybe I didn't tamp it down hard, or no? Yeah, it's very humid. The tobacco is when the tobacco is humid, it's tough to light. And here's my third match. Is usually on the first match. I don't want to char the tobacco, then it's not good to taste. Taste the Cavendish, just so there's sweetness. It's very light on the rum. I taste the nuttiness of the. As a matter of fact, I taste more burley and more Cavendish. I taste the caramel. Yeah, this is one of those tobacco that you're gonna grab a portion of it, maybe the first bowl, the second bowl, and the complexity of it's gonna change. You might get a little bit more caramel flavor, a little bit more sweet, fruity, and sometimes the perique will hit you. But I noticed there's not a lot of perique in here. I think they add the perique, to just to enhance it, give it more depth, give it more body. But very, very hardly no perique. Very light. Caramel. Very caramel. Tastes a little rum. It's not intense flavor. So if you want something, you can light up. You want to taste tobacco, like sweetness, caramel. You're gonna work outdoors all day. You're reading a book. You just want to smoke something. It has body, flavor body because of the pressing of the tobacco. But most importantly, it smells great. So if you look into something to smoke around other people without offending somebody, yet you enjoy the smoke, very light, mild, not at all pungent. Once it's lit, it's lit. And remember, I live in a humid, 70% humidity here, so. But let me get back to the story. So Paco took me there. I saw all them scorpions. I started running out of the place. He says, "Why are you running?" So what they do is after they harvest, they begin to char and burn the sugar cane fields. Then they collect the scorpions. I have to this day I've never found out why they collect the scorpions. I have no idea. So then he took me from that sugarcane field to the tobacco field. And that's where Paco, the tobacco has different area. It has a portion, the veiny portion, which is heavily, has nicotine, very light, mild. And so he showed me. I tried the lower part of the leaf, then the top portion of the leaf for the difference. He would put it in my mouth, much like you do chewing tobacco, And then he goes, "Okay, you got that." So he had these bazookas gums. I don't even remember the bazooka gums. He used to have the cartoons in it. So he grabbed a portion of it, and he took the tobacco with the bazooka and he put it in my mouth. He said, "You baseball player." He said, "Try this." I was with that for about an hour, man. Some of it was green, some of it was like, whoa. But he said, "This is how the top of the leaf tastes like. This is with the middle portion. This is the bottom portion. We use it for this." And then he took me to a place where they were aging Oscuro and Maduro leaves. And that's where I got my start. I was like 10 years old. It's 12 years old. I was 12 years old. I knew about cigars and everything. And he showed me how to hand roll my cigars. And this is the first cigar he showed me how to roll was the Corona. Then from there, you can roll a Corona, you can roll a Robusto. The hardest cigar for me to roll was the Churchill size. And the easiest ones were the Presidente, which is the huge cigars. So that's how I got my start, and that's how my family was in the industry since the 16th century. The 16th century. And what they used to do, because the Puerto Rican, the population was lighter skinned, they would take a bunch of them to the Dominican islands, and in Santo Domingo, they would be the foreman over those that were darker skinned. They were Taino Indians, darker skinned, and they were running the factory. And during harvest time, what would happen is from Puerto Rico, they'd go to the Dominican Republic, harvest that tobacco there, it was not the industry is not like the way it is now. So they have 4 or 5 plantations. So they would go by ships to Puerto Rico, from Puerto Rico to Santo Domingo, harvest it, separate it. Some was sun grown, shade grown, and then from the Dominican Republic they take another ship and go to Cuba and do the same thing in Cuba. And then I believe in the 1800s, one of my uncles decided, one of his friends who had a company and wanted to see if he can grow in the San Andreas, took one of my uncles with him to San Andreas. And he went to San Andreas and he began growing tobacco. He stayed like 2 or 3 years there and he got married there to a second wife. Nobody knew about it. He stayed there and he developed what was the 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 cigar that was to later to be called the Te Amo cigar. It's really strong, veiny, from the San Andreas. So how I found out that my uncle had lived there for a lot more than what my family told me is, oh, he went down there to Chicago, then he came back. He was down there for 3 years. And in those 3 years, he got married. His first wife in Puerto Rico never found out about it. But some other, his other uncles, brothers knew about it. They didn't say nothing. So, in every season, the women knew. The men would go from Puerto Rico to the Dominican Republic, marry in Puerto Rico, have a woman there. Go to Cuba, marry, have a woman there. Go to, and some of them would go to Latin America and have a woman there. And they were making enough money to support all the women. And these shysters were getting married in the Catholic Church, paying the priests, and they had children. And I found that out through DNA analysis. Because all of a sudden I'm like 4th-generation cousins, 5th-generation cousins. How can I don't have family in Mexico. How can I have family in Mexico? And then when we got in contact with each other, he goes, yeah, your great grandfather was here. He lived here for 3 years. We got records. We got baptisms that he would perform on his kids. I said, holy smoke, two cousins. And uncles got married to other women and they had kids. So it says, you descendant of Ponce de Leon. I go, yeah, I'm a descendant of Ponce. Well, one of his brothers came down here, grabbed another woman. I go, yeah, the Ponce de Leon. What they did, they buy up the tobacco plantations. See 1 or 2 women. If the plantations were owned by the Indians, they would marry themselves to the chieftain or the daughter of the father, the owner. So that's what they were doing. They were marrying Indians, women, beautiful Indian women, and having kids. So you got all these Ponce de Leon last names. You have Santiago, which comes from the Spanish Knights Templar. That's how I got my name, through 2 Irish called James brothers who came over in the 16th century. They were called the wild geese because they were on the side of the Spanish against the British. So St. James got converted to Santiago, which comes from Jacob, which is nothing but Jewish Irish people. They came, they live on the island. They too married, but they brought a whole colony of Irish people to Puerto Rico. And one of the areas, you see this, is from the area, forgot what county. So that's why I wear the hat, because of my Irish grandfather and his uncle. They were soldiers. They defended. I don't know if you ever been to San Juan. All the cannons in San Juan, they built those cannons. And my cousins went off to fight and built cannons for the revolution, the American Revolution. So the Irish that came, the history, the Irish that came to help fight in the American Revolution weren't from Ireland. They were Irish from Puerto Rico. And they brought a lot of Taínos so my uncle was honored, James, which makes me a son of liberty. He got married. Had a woman in New York. Had an Indian woman in Puerto Rico. Did he ever come back to Puerto Rico? I don't know. Just oral tradition. That's what I know. He went off to build cannons, to modify them, and help George Washington. So that's how you got Santiago on all the islands. Santiago, Cuba, Santiago, Chile, Santiago. So, but the Santiago name comes from a part of northern Spain that was predominantly Spanish Irish, Galicia, Castilian, and so the Order of Santiago, you could look it up. Order of Santiago, the Spanish version of the Knights Templar, that were guarding the pilgrims that were going up to see Apostle St. James's body, which was in one of the cathedrals in northern Spain at the time, before his bones got distributed. So it's fascinating history, going down through the ages, how St. James came, how tobacco got to me through my uncles, and through my uncle, I learned about the history of the male portion of my family that were going around screwing all these women, having kids. As you can run into Santiago, it's very light skinned, exotic looking women, beautiful women. Some look Spanish, some look more Indian. Some have blue eyes, red hair. Because of all the mixture, whatever your genetic pool is, the difference between them and me is I had a lot of more Moorish Arab blood. I had a portion of my family were from an area called Andalusia, which was known to be Arab Berbers. Barbarians or Berbers from North Africa, but my DNA showed that some of my ancestors were Phoenicians. And if you go track Phoenicians were from Lebanon. The Phoenician Empire, they traded, set up colonies in Carthage and northern Morocco and Gibraltar. They did all the trading, all the transporting of Roman soldiers. So, the human migration, like I was saying, I was studying human migration, that's everywhere. If anything, tobacco migrated, right? Humans migrated, tobaccos migrated. Tobacco came from Americas to Ireland, to England, to Spain, from Spain. It went into the Balkan areas, Syria. The Phoenicians traded with them. So you had people that grew all types of tobacco. That's how we get Latakia. That's how we get Balkan. We get Oriental tobaccos. They learned to use different processes. Different methods were developed. And some of us DNA genetically enhanced by smoking tobacco. It just happens that have a high tolerance for different types of tobacco. They kind of mutated. All these guys smoke. I've never had a problem. What's interesting, some of my ancestors went from the Canary Islands to New Orleans, learned to speak French. From New Orleans, they entered Texas. You know, you had some of the earliest settlers in southwestern, which was part of the Spanish territory. My family were there. A whole bunch of conquistadors and military soldiers. They married Indian women, Zuni Indians, and my uncles did. And so I have cousins. I'm not Sunni, but because my uncles, great uncles married Indian women, I have families, cousins that are like half Sunni, some cousins that are half Amazonian, Incans. It's all good, I don't have any problem with that. You know, sometimes they do. I have one guy. So I have Norwegian blood. I have Viking blood. He lives in Iceland. And we got in contact through the ancestry. He goes, "How is it that I have a dark skin?" I said, "Well, the Irish, a lot of Irish married Vikings, were taken hostage or whatever the situation was. They marry Anglo-Saxons. They marry Picts. They call Picts people. They married from a tribe, Britain, that's in my DNA, a tribal group, Britain, indigenous. So it's just, you sometimes you dress like you're British. I said, that's probably what I grabbed from them. I love British clothes, love it. Pleats, tweeds, scarves, walking sticks. Since a kid. Didn't know why. Always I was always fascinated with Ireland. And so some of my ancestors come with that area called Cook County, Cook Island County. So I'm like, I want to go visit Shetland, this place called Shetland. Beautiful place, beautiful. Ireland is very beautiful. So I love all that, drinking tea and eating and then going on a hike, trail, and like walking stick. Got nothing to do with your skin color. DNA, you get that from your ancestors. I personally believe you behave in some instances just like your ancestors behave. I mean, it takes a lot to push me to get angry, but when I get to that level where I'm angry like that, where it's like we're gonna fight, they tell you the Viking and the Irish come out of me. I become a berserker. you know. I tell you, I've been talking to you, and I haven't noticed, but the flavoring of this is even better. It's gotten better. Caramel, vanilla, a little rum. It is very subtle. So yeah, thumbs up. Cellular Reserve. You like a little rum? You got like a little caramel? You want to try a little different? This is different. Hi, babe. You can try. Okay. You can try this. Cellular. Having a little coffee now. You should say that the piper man, piper the sailor man. Have a wonderful day and smoke up.